Imagine for a second, right, that you are stepping into an auditorium. And not just any auditorium. I mean, it's ancient, it's super drafty, and you're just crammed into these tiny, totally unforgiving wooden seats that feel like they were, well, like they were built for pixies a century ago.
Oh, absolutely. The worst kind of seating.
Right. And you are surrounded by hundreds of strangers. The air is just thick with nervous body heat and, way too much cologne. And you are entirely unsure of where you belong. You're basically second-guessing every single life choice that brought you to this room.
A completely universal feeling, honestly.
Totally. And then, before you can even catch your breath, you are thrust through a glowing purple portal right there on the stage, and you land waist deep in a squelching, murky, treacherous swamp. The humidity just hits you like a wet towel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There are literal goblin tracks in the mud.
Oh.
And nobody's giving you any instructions. I mean, this isn't some fever dream you're having. This is orientation day.
It is the ultimate trial by fire. Or, well, I guess in this scenario, trial by mud. Right?
Trial by mud, exactly.
So we are dropping into an incredibly rich narrative today, chronicling a group of students facing their first major test at Manaheim Academy. And the mission of this deep dive isn't just to recap a fantasy story.
Right, because there's so much more to it.
Exactly. Buried in all this magical swamp muck are some genuinely profound insights. We're talking about group dynamics, the hidden costs of leadership, lateral thinking, and ultimately what it actually takes to find your true tribe when all the rules are completely stripped away.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to understand the chaos of the swamp, we kind of have to start in the quiet.
Yes, the calm before the storm.
Right. So the story begins before that cramped auditorium on what our protagonist, Tira, calls Night Zero. She's a new student, an orphan with a very mysterious past, and she is just sitting alone in her dorm room.
Just staring out the window, right?
Yeah, staring out at the academy grounds. And she has this completely blank diary in front of her. She writes 2 words, just "I'm here," and she's having this intense internal dialogue with Max.
Max being the voice in her head.
Exactly. Max is this calm, super perceptive, completely disembodied voice living inside her mind. And Tira is just drowning in imposter syndrome. I mean, she's looking around this dusty room, listening to the unfamiliar sounds outside, and wondering if she literally took the seat of someone who, deserved to be there more than she did.
That concept of Night Zero is such a brilliant psychological framing device. It represents a liminal space.
A liminal space, like a transitional thing.
Exactly. Think about the night before you start a new job or the evening before you move to a new city.
Huh.
You have formally left your old life behind, but your new life hasn't tangibly started yet.
Oh, that is the most stressful feeling.
It really is. The noise of all the preparation and the packing has faded, and you are left entirely alone with the weight of your own expectations and, well, your doubts.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome in these moments isn't just a modern buzzword. It is an intense evolutionary anxiety about whether you have the survival skills necessary for this new social ecosystem.
Right, because the stakes feel so high.
Precisely. And Tira is an orphan with no grand legacy, sitting in a school steeped in centuries of elite history. She feels like an anomaly waiting to be exposed.
And she is a deeply dangerous anomaly at that. I mean, we get this visceral flashback that hints at her guarded past.
The scene with the flower.
Yes. When she was a kid, she had this moment of intense anger, and she squeezed a flower.
Yes.
And she didn't just crush it. She literally absorbed its life force into her own veins, wilting the petals to dust.
Which is horrifying in context.
Totally. She possesses necromancy. She has this incredibly dark, taboo secret. So when we look at her caution around other people, we realize it isn't just standard teenage awkwardness.
Yeah.
It is a strict survival mechanism.
Because if they find out.
Right. In her mind, if anyone discovers what she can actually do, she won't just be an outcast. She'll be entirely expelled from society.
Her magic fundamentally isolates her. It dictates her extreme physical and emotional guardedness. She has built an impenetrable fortress around her identity. And the narrative immediately tests that fortress by throwing her new roommate, Addie, through the door.
Oh my God, Addie.
Right. Addie is a whirlwind. She enters struggling under a literal mountain of luggage, tricking over her own boxes and radiating this open, unapologetic warmth.
Addie is basically the human equivalent of a golden retriever. I mean, within 5 minutes of meeting Tira, she pulls out this frayed red camping bandana, ties it around her wrist, and casually explains that it belonged to her late mother.
Just instant oversharing, but in a good way.
Exactly. She shares this deeply personal family totem without a second of hesitation. And Tira is standing there, totally bewildered by this girl who just casually hands over vulnerability.
The contrast is incredibly jarring.
It really is. You have one character whose survival depends on absolute secrecy, and another whose survival seems to depend on radical openness. But it's exactly the kind of friction Tira needs to be pulled out of her own head.
Well, the sociology of that interaction is fascinating. Sharing personal artifacts or stories early in a relationship is actually a proven method for rapidly establishing psychological trust.
So it's like a fast track to bonding.
Exactly. Addie is implicitly saying, I am showing you my soft spots so you know I am safe. And as they leave that dorm room and walk through the quad the next morning, that theme of finding safety and belonging expands to the entire architecture of Manaheim.
Right, the whole house system.
We are introduced to the 4 houses. You have the Azure Bears in blue, who are the reliable, rule-abiding backbone of the school. The community builders.
Okay, the solid ones.
Then you have the Crimson Tigers in Red House. They are the elite, the intense, the ones driven by unyielding excellence and, super high standards.
They're the ones you definitely want operating on you in a hospital, but maybe you don't want to play a casual board game with.
Very true. It would be a very stressful game of Monopoly.
Oh, totally.
Then we meet the Golden Eagles, represented by bright yellow. They are bold, creative, freedom-loving. And finally, the Verdant Deer in green.
And they're sort of the oddballs, right?
They are frequently viewed by the rest of the school as the unconventional misfits, but their core values are deeply rooted in empathy, harmony, and an unconventional depth of wisdom.
Wait, hold on. I look at these 4 houses, and they feel exactly like those corporate culture archetypes or, personality matrices you get sorted into at a mandatory company offsite.
Oh, the personality tests.
You know the ones where they make you take a test and tell you you are a driver, an amiable, an expressive, or an analytical, and then they give you a color-coded lanyard.
Yes, exactly like that.
But if I'm 18 years old and trying to figure out who I am, doesn't sticking me in a rigid color-coded tiger box just stunt my growth? Doesn't this whole system just create massive, impenetrable echo chambers where the ambitious kids only talk to the ambitious kids and the creative kids only talk to the creative kids?
What's fascinating here is that while the risk of echo chambers absolutely exists, the psychological literature on group dynamics suggests these categorization structures provide something far more critical in the short term.
Really? What's that?
Psychological safety. When you enter a massive, overwhelming environment, like an ancient magical academy or even a massive global corporation, having a clearly defined tribe drastically reduces your cognitive load.
Oh, I see. Because you don't have to figure everyone out.
Exactly. You don't have to figure out the social dynamics of 1,000 people. You just need to understand your subset. It gives you immediate common ground. It provides a baseline of shared values that makes vulnerability, like what Addie showed, much easier to access.
So it functions like training wheels for socializing in a complex environment.
Precisely. The system reduces the friction of finding a peer group. Furthermore, the narrative is very careful to show us that this system allows for self-determination.
Like Tommy, right.
Take the character of Tommy, yes. Tommy is a golden eagle, but he comes from a long, entrenched line of Azure Bears. His parents, his older siblings, everyone in his family expects him to be a reliable, rule-following bear.
But he goes a totally different way.
He actively chose to break away from that legacy because he recognized his own need for creative freedom. The categorization isn't a prison. It is a framework that you can either adopt or push against to define your own identity.
That makes a lot of sense. Tommy breaking the mold proves that the sorting isn't deterministic. But, it is one thing to talk about these personality archetypes in theory, walking through a sunny courtyard.
Right, when everyone is comfortable.
Yeah. It's easy to be a proud Crimson Tiger or a collaborative Azure Bear when the stakes are 0. The real test of these identities happens when you take all these diverse, clashing personalities, jam them into a cramped room together, and then pull the rug out from under them entirely.
Which is the perfect setup for the absolute chaos of the orientation ceremony.
It's just wild.
It's the pedagogical strategy of the draw.
Let's set that scene. They walk into this grand auditorium, and the physical discomfort is immediate. We meet Kenny, this tall, broad-shouldered guy, who was openly complaining that the seats feel like they were made for pixies 100 years ago.
Which, given the setting, maybe they were.
Honestly, probably. It's hot, it smells like nervous teenagers, and everyone is packed in shoulder to shoulder.
And here we get a very clear look at the 10 students who will form our core group. We have Bannock, who carries this warm, calm presence that instantly puts Tira at ease. He has a natural, effortless charm that diffuses tension.
He seems like a natural mediator.
Very much so. We have the Brodnoxy twins, Kenny, who is cautious, protective, and heavily rules-focused, and his sister Kelly, who is incredibly empathetic and forgiving.
And then the tigers.
Yes, the Crimson Tiger pair. Elizabeth, who goes by Liz, and Devon. Liz is polished, commanding, and practically vibrates with authority. Devon is intense, highly disciplined, and deeply skeptical of everyone around him.
So the headmaster and the professors are up on stage. And we get a glimpse of Professor Myrtle, who totally shocks Tira because she possesses the exact same unique orange eyes as Tira's late mother.
A very unsettling moment for her.
It's a quick, jarring moment of connection. But before Tira can even process it, Madame Courgette, another professor, steps up and delivers a very vague, slightly ominous welcome speech. She explicitly tells the students that they will receive 0 instructions for what is about to happen.
Which is terrifying for a student.
They are told to step through a glowing portal on the stage in groups of 10. So Tira's group steps through. Instantly, the creaky floorboards vanish. The dry air is gone. They are standing waist-deep in thick, squelching mud.
Just a complete environmental shock.
It's humid, it's oppressive, and there are literal goblin tracks in the muck around them.
Dropping students into a high-stress, low-information simulation is a brilliant stress test. It completely strips away the polished facades they brought into the auditorium.
Because you can't fake your way through a swamp.
Exactly. You cannot rely on your rehearsed talking points, your family legacy, or your neat little house theories. Your boots are sinking into swamp muck, and you have no idea what the objective is.
Yeah, all that theory just goes out the window.
By removing the instructions, the professors are removing the ability to simply follow the rules. It forces true instinctual personalities to surface immediately.
And those personalities clash instantly. I mean, we are watching a real-time sociology experiment unfold in the mud. There is an immediate, massive divide in leadership styles.
Liz and Bannock, right from the start.
Exactly. Liz looks at the mud in absolute disgust, declares that they don't have time to stand around talking, and unilaterally decides they just need to pick a direction and march out of the muck. She expects everyone to just fall in line behind her authority.
Bannock takes the opposite approach.
Right. Bannock wants to form a consensus. He tells the group that if they stick together and actually look at the clues, like the goblin tracks, they will figure out what the test is actually evaluating.
It is the classic textbook clash between authoritarian, unilateral leadership and collaborative, consensus-building leadership. Liz views the environment strictly as an obstacle to be conquered as quickly as possible. Bannock views the environment as a complex puzzle to be solved collectively.
Think about the last time you did a team-building exercise, or even an escape room with your coworkers.
Oh, escape rooms are the ultimate test of this.
They are. There is almost always that one alpha personality who bulldozes the entire group. They start shouting orders, hoarding all the clues, and just brute forcing the locks because they want to win the fastest time.
And they usually end up frustrating everyone else.
Totally.
Yeah.
But let me play devil's advocate for Liz here. If you are quite literally sinking in a swamp with goblin tracks around you, isn't Liz's swift, unyielding decision-making exactly what you need?
In some contexts, it's yes.
Right. I mean, in a genuine crisis, a slow, diplomatic town hall meeting where everyone shares their feelings seems like a great way to get eaten by goblins.
Swift action absolutely has value in a crisis where the parameters are known. If the building is on fire, you want an authoritarian leader pointing to the exit. You don't want a town hall meeting.
Right, exactly.
But the simulation isn't just a test of speed. It is fundamentally a test of situational awareness. Liz's hyper-focus on the objective creates massive blind spots.
Oh, like with the drowning man.
Exactly. Look at what happens right after they start walking. They spot a man flailing in the mud, drowning. He is crying out that goblins took his daughter.
A pretty major plot hook.
Liz immediately barks in order to save him, which another student does seamlessly. But the moment the man is pulled from the mud and is safe, Liz completely dismisses him.
Yeah, she literally refers to him as a quest and rolls her eyes.
She treats him like a poorly programmed non-player character, an NPC, in a video game.
Devon even scoffs at the guy, muttering that the whole setup is too convenient. They are totally emotionally detached from the scenario.
They are treating the simulation purely as a mechanical game to be beaten. But Bannock and Tira approach the drowning man with genuine empathy. They listen to his panic. They read the nuance of the situation.
Because they see him as part of the world, not just a hurdle.
Right. Liz's insistence on charging forward means she risks missing the actual texture of the test. When leaders treat people, whether they're team members or stakeholders, as mere obstacles or data points to be managed, they miss the deeper context of the environment they are trying to navigate.
It is the difference between hearing the parameters of a project and actually listening to the environment. Liz heard that they needed to survive the swamp, but Bannock and Tira are listening to the swamp itself.
That's a great way to put it.
However, navigating this experience requires dealing with physical roadblocks just as much as social ones. They can't just empathize their way out of a swamp.
No, eventually they hit a physical wall.
Right, they emerge from the thickets and find themselves blocked by a sluggish, dark river. Devin notes on the tracks that the goblins are amphibious. They clearly swam across. But the human students are stuck on the bank. They need a bridge.
And this obstacle forces a shift from conceptual leadership to practical execution.
Yeah.
Liz tries to isolate her unit.
Yeah, which is so telling.
She suggests that she could just grow a magic vine to carry herself and Devin across, effectively leaving the rest of the group behind to fend for themselves.
Just see you later, good luck.
Pretty much. But Bannock gently but firmly shuts that down, insisting on a solution that gets all 10 of them across safely. This forces the group to start brainstorming.
This is where the collaborative magic really shines. Kelly suggests using her plant magic to grow vines and weave them into a rope across the water.
A good start, but not enough on its own.
Right, because Tommy points out that he could use his ice magic, but if he tries to freeze the entire width of the rapid river, it would completely drain his mana. He'd be exhausted and useless for the rest of the test.
So they need a hybrid solution.
Exactly. So Tira pieces the ideas together into a composite solution. Kelly weaves and grows the vines to stretch across the river, creating a physical structure, and Tommy uses small, targeted bursts of his ice magic to freeze specific patches on the vines, creating sturdy stepping stones.
It is a masterful display of synergy over brute force.
It really is.
If Tommy had tried to freeze the entire river, it would have been an unsustainable display of massive individual power. He would have sacrificed his long-term utility for a short-term win.
And then he'd be useless for the goblins.
Right. Instead, by combining two entirely different skill sets, plant magic and ice magic, they create a sustainable, efficient solution. It requires significantly less individual exertion, but yields a much greater collective result. It's the essence of cross-functional teamwork.
It is the ultimate work smarter, not harder moment in the mud. So they start crossing this precarious icy vine bridge. They're making steady progress, but then Addie, who specifically whispered to Tira earlier that she is terrified of swimming slips.
The worst possible moment.
She loses her footing on the wet moss and falls hard into the rapid current.
The reaction of the group is instantaneous, and it further defines their character alignments. Liz actually attempts to stop anyone from helping.
Which is just so cold.
She states she wants to watch how Addie handles the pressure herself. But before Liz can intervene, another student immediately jumps in after Addie.
But the current is just too strong.
The current is too vicious, though, and they both start getting swept downstream. That is when Kenny, the cautious, rule-abiding Azure Bear, leaps down and deploys a massive protective mana shield.
I love this part.
He uses the shield not as a weapon, but as a breakwater, cutting the current just enough for all of them to scramble back onto the bridge.
It's an incredible hero moment. But the real quiet drama happens when they finally drag themselves onto the other bank. Addie is safe from the water, but her leg is badly injured from the fall.
She's in really bad shape.
Yeah, she is in obvious, intense pain, unable to put weight on it. Tira looks around. She sees Liz watching them critically, evaluating their weakness. And Tira makes a split-second decision. She kneels down, takes Addie's injured leg, and secretly activates her necromancy.
This is a huge turning point.
She pushes her own life force into Addie. The text gives us this incredible, visceral description of the magic. Tira feels a profound warmth build in her hand as it touches Addie, but simultaneously a sharp, dull ache blooms deep in her own leg.
The transfer of pain?
She literally absorbs Addie's physical injury into her own body. Addie opens her eyes, totally healed, completely unaware of what just happened. She jokingly calls Tira a healer, but Tira is suddenly exhausted. She is limping, and she is in real pain.
We need to dive deeply into the mechanics of Tira's magic here, because it serves as a profound metaphor.
Let's do it.
Unlike typical fantasy magic that just conjures healing light out of thin air to fix a problem, Tira's power operates on a strict, unbreakable, zero-sum principle.
So it's not infinite.
Not at all. It is essentially the thermodynamics of magic. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. In order to give life or health to someone else, she must willingly take on their pain. And conversely, to heal herself, she must take life from something else.
Which is exactly what we see her do a few moments later. She falls behind the rest of the group, hiding in the brush so no one can see her limping. She spots this fat, warty swamp toad sitting on a log.
Now we know what she has to do.
She uses her magic to drain the life force directly from the toad, absorbing its vitality to heal the manufactured injury in her own leg.
It is a stark, almost brutal transaction. And she is forced to do it in total secrecy because the society she lives in fears and condemns this exact kind of magic. Necromancy is the ultimate taboo.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. If we step entirely out of the magical fantasy context, Tira's zero-sum magic is the single most perfect metaphor I have ever seen for emotional labor in the real world.
Oh, that's a fascinating connection.
Think about it. You've probably felt this in your own life. When someone in your friend group is hurting or there's a massive conflict at work, someone usually steps in to fix it.
They become the mediator.
Right. They sit down, they listen, they take on that person's emotional pain, they absorb the stress of the situation to smooth things over. But that pain doesn't just evaporate into the ether.
No, it has to go somewhere.
The person doing the emotional labor absorbs it. Their own battery drains. And eventually, they have to find an outlet to recharge or they will completely burn out.
That is a phenomenal analogy. Emotional caretaking is rarely a free exchange. It exacts a heavy, often invisible toll on the caretaker.
Exactly. But if we look at Tira's actions, by keeping her magic a secret, is she actually just protecting herself from being judged as a dark magic user? Or is she actively depriving her team of a critical asset because she's too afraid to be vulnerable with them?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, I would argue it is a complex mix of both. She is absolutely protecting her social standing.
Like we talked about with Night Zero.
Yes, she is terrified of losing her seat at the academy and being cast out. But at the same time, look at what the secrecy allows her to accomplish. It allows her to build genuine, uncomplicated trust with Addie without the heavy baggage of her taboo magic getting in the way.
Because Addie doesn't have to fear her.
Addie just sees a friend who helped her in a moment of crisis. The toad, in this context, represents the ugly, hidden costs of leadership and caretaking. Tira takes on the burden silently so the group can keep moving forward without friction.
Wow.
How many leaders or parents do that exact same thing? They absorb the shockwaves of a crisis, hide their own exhaustion, and find private, sometimes ugly coping mechanisms, the toad, so that their team or family doesn't have to carry the weight.
She suffers in silence so the team doesn't have to panic. It is incredibly selfless, but it's also deeply, deeply isolating. She is carrying a secret that separates her from the people she's trying to bond with.
It creates a wall, even if she's trying to help.
But Tira isn't the only one in the group utilizing a highly controversial, borderline manipulative set of skills to solve problems. Because right after the river crossing, they finally track down the goblins, and we get a front row seat to Liz's unique brand of influence.
The entire goblin encounter is where the simulation brilliantly subverts standard narrative expectations.
Oh, completely. You hear Goblin Lair in a fantasy setting, and you immediately expect a bloody, tactical battle with vicious monsters.
Devin certainly does.
He instantly puts his hand on his weapon, ready to start swinging at the first sign of movement. But instead, they find these two absurd, comical goblins guarding a cave entrance. They were wearing mismatched algae and muddy rags. And what are these fearsome monsters fiercely demanding as a toll to pass? Shinies and socks.
It defies standard fantasy tropes entirely.
Totally.
The goblins aren't violent hurdles to be physically overcome. They are bureaucratic, hyper-fixated hurdles. They require lateral thinking and negotiation, not brute force.
And the group tries diplomacy, right?
The group actually attempts diplomacy first. Addie, in her typical giving nature, sacrifices her ruined socks. Another student uses magic to make some pebbles shimmer like silver coins.
Bannock tries to be the diplomat.
Bannock steps forward, approaches them respectfully, and does the whole diplomatic exchange. And the goblins take the bribe, laugh right in his face, and gleefully announce that they were never going to let the humans in anyway.
Total betrayal. The goblins basically look at them and say, "Thanks for the socks, you stupid humans, for keeping the door locked."
They get completely scammed.
Devin is about to lose his mind. He draws his weapon, fully prepared to attack. But Liz steps up. She commands Devin to stand down. And she activates a power that the goblins end up calling her Shiny Lady Charm.
The narrative describes her voice shifting, laced with an unnatural, heavy charm. It is a spell of allure wrapping tightly around her words, fundamentally altering how she is perceived.
She looks at these goblins and just purrs, "How about you let my friends through?" And instantly, the goblins' jaws drop. Their eyes go wide with absolute, unblinking adoration.
It's an immediate switch.
They drop all their hostility and become fawning, mindless sycophants. "Anything for shiny lady," they say, tripping over their own feet to clear the path and open the gate.
It is an incredibly effective, localized display of power. It neutralizes a volatile threat instantly without a single drop of blood being spilled.
But it's super creepy.
But Tira watches this unfold and feels a deep, instinctual unease. She hears Max, the voice in her head, explicitly warning her that Liz's power is dangerous. Because what Liz is doing isn't just persuasive negotiation. It is a form of cognitive override. It strips the goblins entirely of their agency.
Think about the real-world equivalents of this. You're trying to get a major project approved by a notoriously difficult department head. Is it better to argue the merits of the project, provide the data, and debate until you're exhausted?
Sure.
Or do you just send in the one incredibly charismatic, magnetically persuasive person on your team to schmooze the department head into signing the paper without even reading the details? Was Liz's charm actually ethical here? Isn't manipulating someone's mind, overriding their free will, even if they are just simulation goblins, just a different, quieter kind of violence?
This raises an important question about the underlying mechanics of power, consent, and leadership.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we look at this through a utilitarian framework, the idea that the best action is the one that maximizes overall well-being. Liz's action is optimal. She saved lives.
Because nobody got hurt.
Right. She prevented a physical altercation that could have resulted in severe injuries for both the students and the goblins. The outcome is undeniably positive.
What?
However, if we look at it through a deontological framework, the idea that actions themselves must adhere to fundamental rules of respect and autonomy, regardless of the outcome, she committed a profound violation.
Because she took away their choice.
She hijacked their free will. It reveals exactly why Liz is destined for the Crimson Tigers. She values the most effective, unyielding path to success, and she is perfectly comfortable operating in that ethical fuzziness to get results.
She gets results. And the group is more than happy to reap the benefits of those results, even if Tira is secretly terrified of the implications of that kind of power. So the goblins, completely hypnotized under Liz's spell, eagerly escort the group into this cozy, luminescent goblin village underground.
A very different vibe than the swamp above.
Totally. They even give Liz a parting gift, a frayed, dirty pink sock with a hole in the toe. Liz rolls her eyes in disgust but takes it. And they finally reach the grand final doors to the Goblin King's throne room.
And here we face another critical puzzle. The door is massive, made of solid stone, and completely locked.
And the goblin guards are completely useless. I mean, they are so mesmerized by the shiny lady that they don't even know what a key is, let alone have one.
The group naturally falls back on conventional human problem solving. They start piling heavy crates and stones onto a large floor trigger pad in front of the door, assuming it's a weight mechanism.
Which makes sense to a human.
Exactly. Devin gets down on his knees and tries to find a mechanical lock to pick. They are applying human logic, brute force, mechanical engineering, and traditional physics to a goblin problem.
And it's completely failing. The stone trigger doesn't budge. The door stays shut. Tira is standing back, watching her highly intelligent classmates fail over and over again. And Max whispers to her, "Think like a goblin. The solution might be hiding in plain sight."
The turning point.
And Tira has this sudden epiphany. She walks over to Liz. She asks for the dirty pink sock the goblins just gave her. Liz looks at her like she has completely lost her mind, but she hands it over.
Because to Liz, it's just garbage.
Exactly. Tira walks up to the heavy stone trigger pad, brushes away all the heavy rocks and crates, and gently places this weightless, frayed pink sock in the exact center. And the massive stone doors shudder and grind open.
It is the ultimate lesson in contextual value and overcoming cognitive bias. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as functional fixedness.
Functional fixedness.
Yes. It is a cognitive bias that limits a person to using an object only in the way it is traditionally used. Think of the classic Dunker candle problem, where people are given a candle, a box of thumbtacks, and a book of matches, and asked to attach the candle to the wall so it doesn't drip onto the table.
Oh, I think I've heard of this.
Most people try to tack the candle directly to the wall or melt the wax to stick it. They fail to see that the box holding the thumbtacks can be emptied and tacked to the wall to serve as a shelf. They only see the box as a container, not a structural support.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
To the human students, a dirty sock is trash. It has zero mass, zero mechanical utility. But to the internal, culturally specific logic of the simulation, which is governed by goblin obsessions, a sock is a treasure of immense weight and importance.
I love this puzzle so much because it translates so perfectly to everyday life. How often do we encounter a complex problem in business, in tech development, in our relationships, and we immediately throw massive resources at it?
We assume hard problems need heavy solutions.
We overcomplicate it. We build elaborate roadmaps, we hire outside consultants, we pile heavy rocks under the trigger plate, when the actual solution is something incredibly simple, but we overlook it because it doesn't fit our preconceived professional notion of what a valuable solution is supposed to look like.
Tira breaks that functional fixedness. By stepping outside her own human perspective and valuing the environment's specific logic, she not only solves the puzzle, but she earns a rare nod of genuine, silent respect from both Devin and Liz.
Which brings us to a moment that completely deflates all the built-up tension of the entire swamp. The massive door is open. They walk into the throne room, fully expecting a terrifying boss fight. They expect a towering monster holding a hostage.
And instead,
And what do they find? The fearsome Goblin King is hunched over a makeshift chessboard, intensely playing a game with the kidnapped girl.
and he is losing terribly.
He is getting utterly destroyed by this child. The girl slides her piece across the board and cheerfully announces, "Checkmate, Mr. Goblin King."
It's just brilliant.
The king slumps in his throne, completely devastated. He essentially looks at the students and says, "Oof, fine, you humans and your tricky shinies, take her back." The grand kidnapping that Liz dismissed as an NPC quest was just a bored, lonely goblin wanting a chess partner.
The simulation deflates the tension with brilliant humor.
But on a walk back to the surface, Tira does something incredibly brave. Prompted by a nudge from Max, she catches up to Liz. And instead of judging her for the mind control, she genuinely thanks her.
She tells Liz, "The goblins might have put up a fight without you. I think everything turned out really well because of you."
And Liz is completely caught off guard. This girl who radiates unshakable, intimidating confidence actually stumbles over her words. She looks at Tira and says, "You had a lot of MVP moments today," and then quietly mutters that she wouldn't hate it if they ended up in the same house.
A huge concession from someone like Liz.
It's this incredibly vulnerable, humanizing moment. Tira consciously reframes a potential rivalry into mutual respect. She realizes that acknowledging someone else's formidable strength doesn't diminish her own value.
It's a profound demonstration of emotional intelligence. Tira recognizes that while Liz's methods of influence are deeply uncomfortable, her intent in that specific moment was to protect the group from harm.
She was trying to help in her own ruthless way.
By validating Liz, Tira breaks down the defensive, hyper-competent wall Liz constantly keeps up. It shows that effective leadership isn't just about making the right tactical calls or solving the puzzle. It is about managing the egos, insecurities, and hidden fears of the people you're working with.
Which is exactly what the professors were evaluating the entire time. All these seemingly isolated actions, Tira's quiet empathy, Liz's raw dominance, Tommy's creative synergy, Bannock's consensus building, were being watched and categorized, because the simulation is officially over.
They finally get out.
They return the girl to the edge of the swamp, the purple portal reappears, and the scene shifts back to the dry, cramped auditorium for the ultimate payoff, the sorting ceremony.
Professor Aubergine takes the stage again, the mud fading from their clothes, and he reveals the true pedagogical purpose of the swamp. He tells the exhausted students, "Manaheim is where we fail faster in order to learn sooner."
Fail faster to learn sooner.
The simulation was never about getting a perfect score or fighting monsters perfectly or completing the quest in record time. It was a psychological alignment test.
It makes so much sense now.
It was carefully designed to see where a student's natural instincts guide them when the rules, the instructions, and the polished floors of the auditorium are completely stripped away.
I love that mantra. Fail faster to learn sooner. It completely changes the paradigm of education. So they begin calling names, presenting the students with their house cloaks. Addie and Tommy are called up, and they receive the bright yellow mantles of the Golden Eagles.
And Tommy finally gets to be himself.
Tommy looks incredibly relieved, ready to write his own story apart from his family's legacy.
Then the Brodnoxy twins, Kenny and Kelly, both receive the blue mantles of the Azure Bears, which aligns perfectly with their demonstrated need for structure, protection, and community, even if Kelly is far more empathetic in her approach than her brother.
Liz and Devon both confidently receive the fierce crimson mantles of the Crimson Tigers, which shocks absolutely no one who watched them operate in the mud. And then Bannock's name is called, and he receives the green mantle of the Verdant Deer.
And Tira realizes, watching Bannock accept the green cloak, that the Verdant Deer aren't just the quirky misfits of the Academy.
They're the glue.
They are defined by quiet wisdom, deep empathy, and the specific ability to hold a disparate group's balance together. That is exactly what Bannock did in the swamp by constantly mediating between Liz's aggression and the group's safety.
And then finally, Tira's name is called. She walks up to the stage. Addie is cheering wildly for her from the Golden Eagle section, and Professor Myrtle, the professor with the vibrant orange eyes, drapes the green Verdant Deer mantle over Tira's shoulders and whispers, "Welcome home, Tira."
Such a great moment.
It's such a deeply resonant, powerful moment.
Tira realizes she has finally found her place. Not by forcing it, not by hiding her true self, and certainly not by dominating the group, but through authentic connection.
She finds a home that explicitly values the very empathy and quiet observation she spent her whole life thinking were liabilities. And this leads us to the final beautiful scene of the narrative, out on the Academy quad. The sun is setting. All these friends are sitting in a massive circle on the grass. Addie uses her magic to conjure a little, warm campfire in the center.
A really peaceful resolution.
Kelly is happily handing out vegetarian sandwiches. And of course, Devon makes a snarky comment about the lack of protein. Tommy and Liz are actually doing a dramatic, exaggerated reenactment of the goblins bowing to the shiny lady, and everyone is laughing. They are completely relaxed.
It is a picture of perfect, integrated harmony, despite the fact that they are now wearing 4 entirely different colored cloaks.
Exactly. It's like graduating high school and going off to different colleges, but you're all still sitting in the same basement hanging out during winter break. And it makes me think, could the Academy have intentionally engineered this?
What do you mean?
Did they group these specific, wildly diverse personalities together in the swamp specifically to forge these cross-house alliances before the sorting ceremony inevitably divided them?
I completely agree with that reading of the text. It reveals the true brilliance of the Academy's overarching design. If you sort 18-year-olds first and then send them to class, they immediately fall into rigid tribalism.
Right, the echo chambers we were talking about.
Bears only study with bears. Tigers only compete with tigers. It creates those echo chambers. But by forcing them into the muck and the mire together first, by forcing them to literally rely on Tommy's ice, Kelly's vines, Liz's influence, and Tira's silent healing, the professors ensured that the house colors wouldn't become impenetrable walls.
That's so smart.
They built a foundational bedrock of shared trauma, forced vulnerability, and mutual triumph that fundamentally supersedes their house affiliations.
They didn't just test their skills, they bonded them as human beings. So what does this all mean? If we zoom out from the magic, the swamp, and the goblins, what are the core takeaways for us right now, navigating our own complex environments?
There are quite a few.
First, I think it's the sheer, undeniable power of lateral thinking. We all have pink socks in our lives. Simple, overlooked solutions that we ignore because we're too busy trying to force a heavy stone door open with brute strength and standard logic. Sometimes, to break your functional fixedness, you have to stop thinking like a human and start thinking like a goblin.
Second, it's the stark contrast in leadership models. We saw Liz's authoritarian efficiency directly contrasted with Bannock's collaborative consensus. Both have their necessary place depending on the crisis. But true resilience in a group, the kind of resilience that survives the swamp and builds lasting trust, often requires the empathy to see people as more than just tools, quests, or obstacles.
And finally, it's the realization that true belonging doesn't come from perfectly fitting into a pre-cut, color-coded mold. It comes from authentic connection. It comes from bringing your whole, messy, sometimes secretive self to the table and realizing that your unique, hidden strengths are exactly what the team needs to build a bridge across the river.
Belonging is forged in the mud, not found in an auditorium.
I love that. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought, something to chew on that we haven't explicitly unpacked yet today. Think about the concept of Max, that internal perceptive, disembodied voice living inside Tira's head.
Her inner compass.
We all have an inner narrator, right? A voice that talks to us when we are staring at the blank page of a diary on our own, night zero, or walking into a crowded room full of strangers. But how often do you actually stop to listen to the tone of that voice?
That's a great question.
Is your inner voice acting as a harsh critic, constantly reminding you of your imposter syndrome, telling you that your skills are a liability, and insisting that you don't belong? Or is it acting as a guide, the way Max does for Tira, challenging you to look closer at the problem, urging you to be brave enough to thank your rivals, and reminding you that you have the agency to shape your own story?
The stories we tell ourselves matter.
They really do. In a world full of external noise, of rigid corporate categories, and shiny lady distractions, constantly trying to control your attention and influence your choices. Maybe the ultimate test isn't conquering the swamp around you. Maybe the real test is learning to trust the voice within.
A powerful thought to carry forward.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the muddy, magical, and profoundly human world of Manaheim Academy. Stay curious out there, trust your instincts, and always, always look out for the pink socks hiding in your own life. Catch you next time.